A kind-hearted, hard-working man, named Emeka lived with her mother and the pride of his mother, Mama Neka. Their home had once been filled with laughter, warmth, and the presence of Papa Nduka, a man whose voice echoed wisdom and whose hands built a future for his family. But death has no mercy. It takes, leaving only grief behind. When Papa Nduka passed, Mama Neka became a shadow of the woman she once was. She was not a woman given to tears, nor was she one to crumble under sorrow. Instead, she poured all that remained of her love into Emeka. Her only son, her only purpose, her lifeline to the world she had lost. Emeka adored his mother. He grew up watching her hands knead dough for akra, smelling the rich aroma of her steaming yam and egusi soup, hearing her voice guide him through the stories of their ancestors. But when his father died, something changed. The love that had once been gentle became heavy, possessive, unyielding. At first, Mama Neka's devotion felt like care. She made sure Emeka never left the house hungry, ensured his clothes were always pressed, and even reminded him, again and again, "No woman could ever cook for him the way I do," she would say. "A wife." Mama Neka would scoff whenever the elders hinted that Emeka should marry. "Why rush? He has me. What else does he need? No woman will take you from me," she would say, sometimes in jest, sometimes with a distant sadness. "I suffered alone to raise you, and I will not suffer alone in my old age." It wasn't just a comment, it was a warning. The cracks in her heart, invisible to Emeka at first, began to show in the subtle twitch at the corner of her mouth when she spoke, in the way her voice softened when she recalled her loneliness, and in the silent pauses after each word, waiting for him to reassure her. And he did. "Mama, I will always be here. No woman will change that." At first, his assurances were innocent, spoken with the unshaken confidence of a boy who adored his mother. But over time they became chains, invisible yet unyielding. With every whispered promise, the spirit took root deeper, curling itself around his choices, his desires, his very future. As Emeka grew older, he longed to marry and start a family. When he met Temideo, he saw the sun in her laughter and the stars in her wisdom. Mama Neka tightened her grip. "She is Yoruba, my son. She does not know our ways. She will take you away from me. She will divide our family." And so, with guilt heavy in his chest, he let her go. Then came Nelly, a vibrant woman with foreign roots, eager to embrace Emeka's world. Mama Neka frowned at the very thought. A foreigner? How will she know how to pound yam properly? How will she serve you like a true wife? "She will take you away, Emeka. Far from your roots, far from me." And like a tree refusing to be uprooted, he stayed where his mother wanted him to be, alone. Emeka let her go too. Chiso followed next, kind and simple, her warmth soothing like the earth after rain. "She is uneducated. She cannot carry our legacy. What will people say?" And so, he denied himself happiness once again. Then came Zama. Then Nikki. Then Fiki. But nothing changed. Mama Neka was never satisfied. There was always something wrong, a flaw only she could see. "She is too headstrong. She won't take care of you like I do. She comes from the wrong family." Years melted into decades, and Emeka's youth withered alongside his mother's aging frame. And so, Emeka, obedient, loyal, trusting, remained unmarried. The village watched, amused at first, then worried. The laughter that surrounded his rejection of suitors faded, replaced by whispers. The women in the market whispered among themselves, "Who will finally marry Mama Neka's son?" But time is unforgiving. It moves whether we embrace it or not. One evening, Emeka returned home from the marketplace. His steps slower, wearier than before. His presence, once filled with youthful vigor, now carried the quiet heaviness of loneliness. He sat beside her, staring into the fire, and in the flickering light, she saw it, the lines of sorrow etched into his face, the absence of hope in his eyes. "Mama, I have no one," he said softly, his voice barely above the crackling embers. Something inside her cracked, and in that moment, Mama Neka felt herself unraveling. She had robbed him of love. She had stolen time from his hands. "Emeka," she whispered, reaching for his hand, her own trembling. "I was wrong." For the first time she admitted the truth. Not just to him but to herself. The spirit that had ruled her actions had masked itself as care, yet it had only served to cage the very person she swore to protect. "I will make it right," she promised, determination replacing sorrow. After Mama Neka's realization, whispers spread through the village. Some people marveled at the change. Had she truly let go? Others remained skeptical, believing a leopard never changes its spots. But Emeka saw something new in his mother's eyes. Regret, yes, but also the courage to set things right. For the first time in years, he felt something stir within him. A question he had buried beneath duty, obedience, and lost chances. Was there still time for love? It was Chiso who spoke first, her voice carrying quiet wisdom. "You need to seek out the love you lost, Emeka. Not because of your mother but because of yourself. If your heart still longs for it, you must go." And so, Emeka traveled back, not just in distance but through memories. Temedeo had returned to her home, married now, her life filled with joy. There was warmth in her eyes when she saw him, but also a quiet knowing that what was lost could never be reclaimed. "I was meant for another," she said gently, and Emeka nodded, grateful for her happiness. Nellie had left long ago, embracing her world with open arms. In her last letter to a mutual friend she had written, "I will always wonder what could have been, but I will never regret walking away." But then there was Zama, who had always believed in kindness before judgment, in love before expectation. She had never married, never quite settled, always waiting, not necessarily for Emeka, but for something that felt right. When he arrived at her doorstep, she looked at him not with bitterness, not with scorn, but with curiosity. "Why are you here, Emeka?" He inhaled deeply, searching for words that had never been spoken before. "I lost myself, Zama," he admitted. "I was so afraid to go against my mother, so afraid to disappoint her, that I never chose for myself. But I am choosing now." Zama studied him for a long moment, then smiled. "You are late, Emeka." His heart clenched. "I know." But then she stepped aside, inviting him in. "Come, let's talk." The future was uncertain, but possibility lingered in the air. Maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late after all. At first, their conversation was cautious, two souls trying to reconnect after so much had been left unsaid. But soon, laughter replaced hesitation, and the spark that had once flickered between them began to burn brightly again. Emeka poured his heart out to Zama, sharing the regrets that weighed heavy on his soul and the hope that still lingered within him. Zama listened with quiet grace, her eyes filled with understanding. She too had longed for something more, a love that had been interrupted but not extinguished. Their relationship bloomed swiftly, like a tree finally freed to grow after years of stifling shadows. They didn't want to waste any more time. Both knew what they wanted, a family to call their own, a chance to build a life together. Their love was fueled not only by affection but by the determination to reclaim the happiness they had both been denied. The villagers watched in awe as the couple walked through the marketplace, their hands clasped tightly, their smiles radiating joy. The same people who had once made jokes and bets now spoke with admiration. "Perhaps they were always meant to be," they murmured, shaking their heads at their own foolishness. As their wedding was planned, the excitement spread through the village like wildfire. Mama Neka, once feared for her unyielding control, was now the picture of pride and happiness. She couldn't contain her joy as she shared the news with anyone who would listen. "My son will marry, and I will finally have grandchildren," she exclaimed, her voice carrying through the streets. On the day of the wedding, the village gathered to celebrate. A large marquee was set up outside Zama's home, adorned with intricate patterns of traditional fabrics and beads. The floor was lined with artificial grass and vases filled with vibrant flowers, red hibiscus, yellow marigolds, and white lilies, their beauty adding a modern yet elegant touch to the traditional decor. Strings of cowrie shells and woven palm leaves hung from the edges of the marquee, blending old customs with new charm. The aroma of rich traditional dishes wafted through the air, drawing smiles from guests who eagerly anticipated the feast. Zama, the radiant bride, was tucked away in a quiet room, finishing the final touches on her stunning dress, a masterpiece of intricate beadwork and flowing silk that represented both modern elegance and cultural pride. Suddenly, her best friend, Ada, rushed into the room, her face a mix of shock and amusement. She held her phone up, showing Zama a photo she had just taken outside. "Look at this," Ada said, pointing at the screen. Zama leaned closer, her heart skipping a beat. There in the photo stood Mama Neka, her soon-to-be mother-in-law, beaming with pride in a traditional dress almost identical to Zama's wedding gown. The beadwork, the silk, even the shade of white. It was an uncanny resemblance. Zama's mouth parted slightly, her thoughts spinning. "What is the meaning of this?" she whispered, half to herself and half to Ada. For a moment, frustration bubbled to the surface. It was her wedding day, her moment to shine, and Mama Neka had arrived in an outfit that competed with her own. But then Zama took a deep breath. She wasn't going to let anything ruin her happiness, not even Mama Neka's unchanging ways. "It's Mama Neka," Zama said, shaking her head with a quiet smile. "She just won't change." She straightened her shoulders and adjusted her veil, determination flashing in her eyes. "I am the bride. No matter what dress she wears, everyone will know that today is my day." When Zama stepped outside, the murmurs among the guests faded, replaced by admiring gasps. She was a vision of grace and beauty, and even Mama Neka's bold choice of attire couldn't overshadow her glow. Mama Neka approached with excitement, holding out her arms. "Zama, my daughter, you look stunning," she said, completely unaware of the tension she had stirred. Zama smiled politely, her heart steady. She greeted Mama Neka warmly, determined to keep the peace and preserve the joy of her special day. As she took her place under the ancient baobab tree beside Emeka, the guests focused on the love between the couple, their admiration for Zama's poise shining through. While Mama Neka's antics might have been a spectacle for some, they were merely a footnote in the larger story of love and unity. Zama had risen above, proving that no dress or drama could dim her light on this unforgettable day. Mama Neka sat at the front, her face glowing with pride and tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. She marveled at the beauty of the ceremony and the strength of the love between her son and his bride. As the couple sealed their vows, the village erupted in applause and ululation, a sound that carried hope and happiness across the fields. From that day forward, the villagers, who had once made bets and laughed, now looked upon Emeka and Zama with admiration. The warm scent of newborn skin and soft linen filled the apartment as Zama rocked her baby gently, humming a quiet melody. She had just settled in after a long night, exhaustion weighing on her limbs, yet joy filling her heart. The world outside was quiet, until the doorbell rang. Zama glanced at the clock. She had been expecting her mother, the woman she had longed to lean on during these first precious days of motherhood. With anticipation, she adjusted her robe and moved toward the door, a tired but content smile on her lips. But as she swung it open, her expression faltered. Standing before her, beaming with overwhelming pride, was Mama Neka. A suitcase rested beside her feet, her hands clasped as if she had arrived with unquestioned entitlement. "Mama!" Zama gasped, forcing a smile, though a quiet knot formed in her stomach. "Hey, I didn't know you were coming." Mama Neka barely acknowledged her hesitation, stepping forward with eager authority. "My daughter, how could I possibly stay away when my grandson has been born?" Her voice was drenched in excitement, though her presence carried something heavier, an air of permanence. Before Zama could even process what was happening, Mama Neka was inside, sweeping past her like the ocean tide, pushing her aside with effortless ease. "Where is my grandson?" she demanded, eyes darting around the living room, scanning every corner as if the child could be hidden somewhere. Zama inhaled deeply, composing herself. "Mama, he is right here," she said, gently adjusting the blanket around her baby. Mama Neka turned, her gaze softening only slightly as she took in the tiny bundle in Zama's arms. Yet instead of a moment of awe or gratitude, she frowned. "Ah, Zama, why are you holding him like that? Give him to me. You must rest." She reached forward, her hands steady, authoritative. Zama instinctively tightened her grip. The message was clear, unspoken but deafening. "This is my child. My moment. My time." She swallowed her frustration, glancing toward Emeka, who had just walked in from the bedroom. His eyes darted between them, hesitation painting his expression. He had spent his entire life caught in the tides of his mother's will, yet even now he hesitated to intervene. Mama Neka, already setting herself down on the couch, untied her scarf, settling into the space as though it had always been hers. "I will stay for a few months," she announced, her tone making it clear she was informing them, not asking. A young mother must be guided properly. "You know, sometimes you girls don't get everything right." Zama felt heat rise in her chest, but she suppressed it, schooling her features into calm neutrality. She had expected this, hadn't she? She had known, deep down, that the wedding had been only a temporary victory. That the spirit that had once ruled Emeka's choices still lurked in the corners of their lives. The leopard had not changed its spots. It had merely waited. "Mama," Emeka finally said, voice measured, weary. "Maybe we should talk about this first." But Mama Neka waved a hand dismissively. "Talk about what? I'm here now. My grandson needs me." Zama exhaled slowly, staring at Emeka, searching for something in his eyes. Resolve, strength, defiance. But instead, she saw the same hesitation that had kept him bound for years. "You should rest, Zama," Emeka finally said, though his voice lacked conviction. Zama knew then that this was only the beginning. Mama Neka wasn't just here to visit. She was here to reclaim control. And Zama, holding her newborn close, knew she had just stepped into the storm. Days stretched into weeks, and Mama Neka showed no signs of leaving. Instead, her grip tightened. The house no longer felt like Zama's own. Every decision, every meal, every moment with her child was overshadowed by her mother-in-law's presence. Zama fought to remain composed, but inside, frustration simmered. She could endure the occasional unsolicited advice, but the constant interference drained her. The final straw came one evening. Zama had spent the afternoon preparing a simple dinner, okra soup and rice, something nourishing but easy in her state of exhaustion. As she set the table, Mama Neka emerged from the kitchen, her expression twisted with disapproval. "Ah, Zama, you don't know how to cook properly," she exclaimed, shaking her head. "My son must eat well after a long day. Where is the yam and stew? Where is the pepper?" Zama clenched her fists, heat rising to her cheeks. This wasn't about food. It was about control, about her authority as a wife and mother being stripped away piece by piece. She turned to Emeka, searching for support. But he only chuckled lightly, rubbing her back. "Don't worry, love. She's just helping." "Helping," Zama repeated under her breath, forcing a smile. "Emeka, she is taking over." Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled as she sat down to eat. Mama Neka, undeterred, took the baby from his crib before Zama could react, rocking him with a knowing smirk. "See, he's calm with me. You must learn these things, my daughter," she said. That night, Zama lay awake beside Emeka, staring at the ceiling, the weight of the weeks pressing against her chest. She had given me patience. She had given understanding. But this was not a temporary stay. "Emeka," she whispered. "If she does not leave soon, I will." Emeka turned, his face shifting from surprise to uncertainty. "Zama, no," she interrupted, her voice firm for the first time. "I married you, not your mother. I love her, I respect her, but I will not live under her rule." Silence stretched between them. The spirit of manipulation had controlled Emeka's life for years, and now it threatened to consume Zama's too. She would not allow it. Tomorrow she will speak. Tomorrow she will reclaim her home. No matter the cost. Zama stood her ground that night, staring at Emeka, her heart pounding with frustration. Her voice had been calm, but the weight behind her words was undeniable. "If she does not leave soon, I will." Emeka sat motionless, torn between two forces. His mother, the woman who had raised him with unwavering devotion, and his wife, the woman he had vowed to love and protect. In that moment, he felt the crushing weight of expectation pressing against his chest. He had spent years bending to his mother's will, believing that obedience was love. But now, love demanded something different. Strength, independence, the courage to choose his own path. "Zama, please," he began, but she shook her head. "No, Emeka," she interrupted, her voice firm. "This is not a fight between me and Mama. This is about us. Family. Our future. And you," she took a deep breath, holding his gaze. "You need to grow up and be the man I married." Emeka inhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. He wanted peace, wanted harmony, wanted both women in his life without conflict. But Zama was right. This wasn't about mediation. This was about boundaries. It was about the silent grip of manipulation that had ruled his choices for too long. Meanwhile, Mama Neka remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in their marriage. She continued directing the household as if it were hers, giving orders on how the baby should be held, how meals should be prepared, how Zama should be a proper wife. Every word was a reminder of her presence, every action a warning that she was not ready to let go. But Zama was done being passive. She had watched how men who refused to leave and cleave ended up in marriages filled with resentment, where their wives bore the weight of competing with their mothers for control. She had seen homes break under the pressure of a husband who remained a son first before being a man. And she refused to let that be her story. One morning Zama made her decision. She sat down across from Mama Neka and spoke with steady resolve. "Mama," she said, her words clear, unwavering, "I honor you. I respect you. But this is my home, my child, my marriage. You raised your son. Now it is time for me to build my family. I need you to leave." Mama Neka's eyes widened, shock and indignation flashing across her face. "Leave? How can you say that, my daughter? I only want to help." "No, Mama," Zama said gently but firmly. "You want control. And I cannot allow that." Emeka stepped forward then, finally understanding what had to be done. He took his mother's hand and spoke words that had never left his lips before. "Mama, I love you. But I love my wife too. And if I must choose between being your son or being Zama's husband, I choose my marriage." The room fell silent. Mama Neka, once the unshakable matriarch, looked into her son's eyes and saw a man where a boy had once been. She had spent her life holding on to him, believing she was protecting him. But now she realized she had only caged him. Tears filled her eyes as she stood slowly, nodding in quiet acceptance. She had lost control, but in doing so, she had given her son freedom. As she packed her bags and prepared to leave, Zama exhaled, releasing the weight she had carried for months. She had fought for her marriage, and in the process, she had given Emeka the courage to claim his own life. So, do you think Zama was right to send her mother-in-law away? This is a message to mothers. Let your children go. Love them, guide them, but do not imprison them with control disguised as care. Give them wings, not chains. Manipulation is a silent force that can erode relationships, leaving behind frustration, resentment, and even heartbreak. In marriages where a mother-in-law exerts control over her son's life, the effects can be devastating, not just for the son but for his wife as well. And for men, love your mother but marry your wife. Leave and cleave or you will tear your home apart. A strong woman will see the manipulation and fight for your freedom, but you must be strong enough to stand with her. A man who cannot set boundaries with his mother and always prioritizes her opinions over his wife's needs is not yet emotionally ready for marriage. Women must marry men, not boys still controlled by their mothers.